opportunity to speak your mind and give your opinion on the most influential music ever made. Your voice, your topics, your show. This is Free for All Friday with host Eddie Trunk.
Yep, it is. We made it to the end of yet another week. A great week it was, too. Man, we got into some great stuff this week. A lot of fun. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And you know the drill. If you missed any of it, all you got to do is go back and listen. You can pull it up anytime on the SiriusXM app. Full shows, interviews, and we had some amazing specials this week where we had a great throwdown and, of course, a really fun show yesterday with, it's not a great subject matter, but reality, was celebrating and remembering artists that we lost. And it was a lot of fun doing that show yesterday, which we called Heaven's House Band, and having the great Carrot Top sitting in with us, whose idea it was to do that show, was a lot of fun as well. And the phones were crazy for that yesterday. And I'm sure a lot of you guys did not get through. So we'll welcome your calls on that today. Carrot Top is not here with me today, but we'll still just the same welcome your calls if you'd like. And also, don't forget, on Wednesday, we had a great throwdown where we pitted the two Jakey Lee records against each other, Ultimate Sin and Bark at the Moon, with Bark at the Moon making a big surge halfway through the show and ending up winning both on the air and also, I didn't check this yet. I checked it yesterday when I got on the air, but I didn't check it for a final time. The poll on my Twitter has closed now, but let me see what it says, because I did not look at this. Final results here. Just scroll down to where it is. Okay, here it is. Over 2,000 people voted, and Bark at the Moon wins 57-43. That's the final tab on the online. After that was up for 24 hours. So Bark at the Moon, the clear winner from Wednesday's show, both online and on the air. And again, surprising, because if you were listening to that show yesterday on Wednesday, when we got out of the gate, it was all Ultimate Sin. And then Bark at the Moon made this incredible surge. As I mentioned, I asked Jakey Lee his thoughts. He wouldn't pick between the two, but he felt that Ultimate Sin was the better record and his playing was better, even though he said Bark will always hold a special place because it was his first time professionally recording with anybody. I asked Zakk Wylde when I saw him on Thursday here in Vegas. Actually, on Wednesday, I saw Zakk Wednesday night, and he picked Bark at the Moon. And then I was telling you guys that I actually think I'm going Ultimate Sin because I, did not listen to both records start to finish again before we did that show, but I did after we did it. And I don't know, I feel like Ultimate Sin's got the better songs, and so much is made of that Ultimate Sin production. And going back and listening to it, it's not that bad at all. I mean, it's fine. It sounds like a lot of records of that time, especially records that Ron Nevison did. So, I thought some of the production stuff on Bark was weird that I had forgotten about. Like these weird little synth blasts and stuff that were really cheesy in some songs. So again, it's a debate that we had that was fun. If you didn't weigh in on that and you want to, that's cool. As far as yesterday's show, again, so much fun having Carrot Top sit in, and it was a great topic. We were talking after the show when we got off the air yesterday. The one, towards the very end of the show, I threw out Elvis, I threw out John Lennon, George Harrison, some super iconic people that did not come up. And again, I understand those artists predate most of my audience. And again, most of the audience being more hard rock driven, that's not stuff that would come to mind, but obviously super iconic artists, the foundation of rock music, actually. But when we were off the air yesterday, the one thing that Carrot Top mentioned which we didn't even, which I was shocked nobody called in with on the air, was David Bowie. Nobody was putting David Bowie in a band yesterday of the Heaven's House Band. Now, like I just said, I know we lean a little more hard rock in our thoughts here generally, but this show covers the spectrum of rock, and Bowie was a big one, huge one to not come up at all yesterday. I just don't know if it was forgotten or what, but you're not going to hit everybody, obviously, but that's a big, big one. So that was great. Some funny stuff in there as well. Carrot Top's idea, which again we talked about when we got off the air yesterday, and we're laughing, him wanting to do a show about people who he thinks are going to die in the next year. I will not do, and I cannot do. That's just awful. But somebody, I forget who, I don't know if it was Joel or somebody said to me, if you do that show, you should call it Waiting in the Wings.
I called it Waiting for Their Halos.
Somebody said Waiting in the Wings. It's just awful. Awful. God. Hey, we're all waiting in the wings, just a matter of when. But anyway, we'll definitely make that a recurring thing, whether we do it with CT or not. But I appreciate him taking the time out of his schedule to join us. And truly, honestly, if you come to Vegas, go see Carrot Top's show. It is, Carrot Top, and he says this himself in his own show. I mean, Carrot Top's a guy that over his career has been goofed on a lot as a prop comic, goofy guy, whatever. I'm telling you, his show is incredible. And it's a funny story with me and him because for years he was trying to get in touch with me because he was a fan of mine. And he would, he used to watch the old TV show, the radio shows, whatever. And he would try to reach me. Even the late, great Vinnie Paul, who lived here in Vegas and was friends with Carrot Top and would always go to the show, Vinnie would call me. He'd be like, you got to call Carrot Top. He's trying to reach you. I go, I don't know the guy. What's he want to talk to me about? He goes, he's just a fan. And then Vinnie had given him my number, and I would get these occasional voicemails from Carrot Top. And the voicemails would say, hey, this is Scott, and I'm a really big fan, because his real name is Scott. And I'm like, Scott, who is this guy, Scott? That is my number. And then I think it was Vinnie Paul. He said to me, no, that's Carrot Top. His real name is Scott. So then finally I went on this thing where I would text him. I would text him back. And, I said to him, I go, at that time I didn't have a place here. I wasn't living here. I was just coming here a lot. And I said to him, look, man, when I get my roots there and I'm there for a little bit and I get my place set up, I'll have time and I'd love to come see your show. So I finally did. This was probably like 4 years ago. And ever since, we've become friends and the show is truly great. I've seen it like 3 times. It's hysterical. Guy's been doing it 19 years in the Luxor alone. I mean, you don't have that kind of run unless you're, entertaining people and doing something right. And it's edgier than you'd think, too. So anyway, good time with him yesterday. And, of course, we'll have him back whenever he wants, whenever he has time. And we want to have him on for something. All right. So that's the recap of the last couple of days. Of course, the whole week was great. And, again, just use that app over the weekend. You can go grab anything you want, listen to full shows, interviews, get caught up. As far as last night is concerned, I went to see the Black Crowes. They played at a venue called the Chelsea, which is a theater inside the Cosmopolitan Hotel here in Vegas. First time I ever saw a concert there. I actually saw a movie there about a year ago. Mark Wahlberg relocated from LA to Vegas a couple years ago, and he is all in on this city as well. And he has lives here now. He's building a movie studio here. And he did a movie screening for a movie that he did for Apple TV like a year ago. And I went to the screening at this facility. But it's a theater that's been there for a long time, and it's cool. It's a perfect size theater. The floor was GA. The back had some seats. And I love open floor GA shows where you can just walk around and be on the floor with no seats, because half the time everyone's standing the full show anyway. So I got over there. I saw Chris Robinson for a little bit before the show, went in his dressing room, talked for a bit. Chris, his whole warm-up ritual is he cranks old 70s music and sings to it and dances around to get ready to go on stage. And he was, telling me about all this rare 70s stuff he was playing. I didn't even know what it was, but he was telling me about it. He's like a total music junkie, that guy. I love him for that. And, then he was like, hey, man, you want to see the set list? Because the Black Crowes always change their set list, like night to night. It's amazing. They never play the same set list. If you're looking for a band that changes it up every night, Black Crowes are one of those bands. They're always going to give you the hits. The 5-6 big hits are always going to be there. But the other 10, 15 songs change all the time. So I said to Chris, I'm like, I don't want to see the set list. I want to be surprised. I said, I just want to know if you're doing Rats and Clowns, which is a song on the new album, which is one of my favorites. And he goes, as a matter of fact, not only are we doing it, we're opening with it. I'm like, awesome. And they did. So the set was a good set, not my favorite because there were some big songs that I loved that they left out. But again, they're doing 90 minutes. And they got a big catalog. You can't do it all. I get that. They played 3 songs from the new record, which I was fine with because I love the new record. They played 3 songs from the album 3 Snakes and One Charm, an album I don't know that well, but it was cool. And they played 1 song from probably my favorite Black Crowes album, By Your Side, Kicking My Heart Around. Played all the big hits. Sounded amazing. What can I tell you about the Crowes that I haven't said before? There is no band out there that is more real, more organic, just more old school, dialed in, guitars plugged into real amps, not a laptop in sight, women singing the backing vocals brilliantly, not a track to be found, as old school and great sounding as any rock band you will ever hear. And Chris is still amazing as a frontman and a singer. Just awesome. Great crowd. People were into it. And, they're running around right now. They're making up for all these Aerosmith dates that were blown out. Because remember, they were supposed to be Aerosmith's opening act. And when that whole tour went down, that kind of messed them up because they had planned all this time to be out with Aerosmith. And now they're trying to recover some of that time and money by getting out and playing their own shows. They're playing in Palm Springs, California tonight. I think they'll have a couple shows left before now and the end of the year. And then they've got a big project coming next year that is coming down the pike because I think it's the anniversary of that record when they were doing the touring with Jimmy Page, when they were going out and doing those Black Crowes with Jimmy Page shows where they played Zeppelin and all that. So I don't know how much I can say about it, but I know there's a big thing coming down the pike with that. When it's time to reveal that, those guys will be on to tell us about it. I'm sure not Page. I would love to have Page. Obviously, that's bucket list. And I've never interviewed him, met him, but never interviewed him. But that would be insane if that could be pulled off. But maybe, who knows? Of course, I'm going to work on it. But I'm sure Chris will come on, maybe even Rich. I saw Rich Robinson, Chris's brother, of course, after the show, talked to him for a little bit as well. Chris does all the interviews, but it was cool talking and saying hi to Rich. And the last thing on the Black Crowes last night, that I think people kind of forget about a little bit is, they have obviously had a huge history of dysfunction between the brothers. At an Oasis level, right? And if you think about it, they reunited just before COVID, and then things got derailed for them because of COVID, so things were backburnered for a couple years. But if you think about it, the Black Crowes now have been functioning for about 5 years, extremely successfully with no drama at all between the brothers. And this is a band whose whole thing was built on that drama. It was legendary, the drama between them. And obviously it broke them up for a long time. So hopefully, that is all behind them because they seem to be older, wiser, and coexisting and getting along just fine. And I can tell you last night from being backstage before and after the show, I mean, Chris is like kind of in his own room, as most singers do, because they've got their own rituals and all that. But, Rich was right there. It's, said hello, and there's no vibe at all negatively. It's really, really cool to see. Now you only hope Oasis can maintain that, because they have a lot more on the line. They've got, multiple stadium dates on the line. So that's what last night was all about. With the latest report Wednesday, I saw Zach Sabbath. Last night, Black Crowes. This weekend, LA Guns are playing 2 shows here in Vegas at Vamp tonight and tomorrow. So I'll definitely probably be catching at least one of those, and I'll give you some info about that when I'm back on the air on Monday. Also, when we get back at it on Monday, we will have Chris Jericho checking in. He'll be a guest joining us, along with his bass player, PJ Farley. Both, of course, old friends. PJ from Trickster and a Jersey buddy from way back when. They play together in Fozzy as well. They're going to be on because they've got more dates with their 80s Kiss tribute quarantine coming up, including one right here in Vegas in like a week, which unfortunately I don't think I'm still going to be here for. But Jericho will join us on Monday. Always good to check in with him. And then we got to also start thinking about and scheduling out some of our year-end call-in shows, album of the year, concert of the year, all that good stuff. We'll get to that, of course, certainly before Christmas. But it's coming up quick. Here we are in the 6th day of December already, heading into the weekend. Okay, few quick other news items, and then we'll get to your calls on a Free-for-All Friday about anything you want. Not a lot today. One big piece of news, though, not big, but just one tour announcement, probably the most major thing today, is another Summer Shed tour that was announced today. It is going to be Styx, who are out pretty much every summer playing the amphitheaters. This bill also includes Kevin Cronin and Don Felder. Now, what's interesting about this is that Styx and REO have toured together many, many times over the years. But if you notice on this announced today, it is billed as Styx and Kevin Cronin. It says very boldly singer-songwriter from REO Speedwagon, but it's billed as Kevin Cronin. And when you look a little closely, it is the same exact band that has been touring as REO Speedwagon the last couple years. It's Matt Bissonette on bass. Is it Matt or Greg, the drummer, the verse? One's the drummer, one's the bass player. I think it's Matt. Matt's the bass player, I'm pretty sure. So Matt Bissonette stepped in for Bruce Hall from REO, who's been the bass player in REO for 40 plus years. If you recall, we had a story not long ago that Bruce Hall wanted to come back to REO Speedwagon. He had issues. He had left for a little while, replaced by Bissonette, and he had left to deal with some physical back issues. He wanted to return to the band. There was some debate and dispute about him coming back to the band. They didn't want him to come back yet. They didn't feel he was ready. There was some falling out over that. And there's 3 guys that have a vote in the business dealings of REO. Kevin Cronin, Bruce Hall, and Neil Dowdy, who was the band's original keyboard player, who retired from the band probably like 10 years ago. So there became a conflict between Bruce Hall and Kevin Cronin about when and if Bruce Hall should come back. And it went to a vote because these bands are set up like corporations, basically. And Neil Dowdy sided with Bruce Hall. So it became a 2-1 situation. And that prohibited, that's why REO announced they were done at the end of next year. But the band that played as REO Speedwagon for the last year or two is exactly the same band that's going out with Styx. All that's happened here is because of this falling out and legal issue over the name, Kevin Cronin can't use the name REO Speedwagon anymore. So this same exact band is just going to go out and call it Kevin Cronin of REO Speedwagon. So it's not, I don't know who wins in that because, the name always wins. But in this case, Kevin's using, I guess, a variation of the name. And Bruce Hall, I would think, and Neil Doughty, who were being paid to not be in the band because they were partners, are now, I would assume, not going to get paid. So these guys, in my opinion, they kind of screwed themselves. Because if they would have just said, yeah, Kevin, just, whatever, we'll stay home, they would have still been getting paid. But now that he's going to go out under Kevin Cronin, even though it's the same band, it's a different billing, now they get nothing. I would think, knowing how the business works, and I got a little insights on this. So it's just, I don't know. I get, there was a line in the sand drawn, but I mean, again, I talk to you guys about this all the time. You can't imagine the shit that goes on with some of these bands and the legalities and the fighting over the name and the dysfunction and the lawsuits and it's just rampant. It's everywhere forever. So anyway, I just thought that was the most interesting component of this. Styx and REO have played countless tours together, and this basically is Styx and REO. It's just a variation on the name because of the dispute with Bruce Hall. Anyway, these dates will begin May 28th and run through August 24th. It's a pretty long tour. It's 3 months this summer, and it's all the outdoor amphitheaters, so I'm sure there's a date coming near you. So that was announced today, and there is already discussions and stuff being put in place for members of all three of these bands, probably Tommy, Kevin, and maybe even Don Felder, to all come on this show to promote this tour at some point in the near future. We'll let you know, probably after the holidays, I would think. What else do I have for you? Sammy Hagar has been added to Metallica's benefit show. Metallica is playing on the 13th of December, which is next week already. A week from today, actually. Right? A week from today. Metallica is playing at the YouTube Theater in LA. It is a smaller show by their standards, but they do this every year. I went to it a couple years ago. It is for their All Within My Hands charity, a great cause. When I went a couple years ago, Greta Van Fleet was the opening act. This year, they have tapped Sammy Hagar, Satriani, Michael Anthony, Kenny Aronoff, basically the Best of All Worlds band, to do a set before they play. So that's pretty cool. Sammy and the Metallica guys have a lot of history. I first knew about this back when I had those guys both on That Metal show together, because if you recall, during the Monsters of Rock tour, Van Halen was the headliner when Sammy was in the band, and Metallica was on the middle of the bill. Metallica had just, I think, put out Master of Puppets. Remember, it was Van Halen, Dokken, Metallica. And after that tour started, some of the guys in Dokken asked to have that lineup change, that billing changed, because Metallica were taking off and Dokken was falling apart, and they could not follow Metallica. But they did. They had to, but that was not good, as those guys themselves will tell you. So back then, that's when Sammy and the Metallica guys first kind of bonded, and they're still close to this day. I don't think I'm going to be able to make this. I would love to, because I went to it. It's for a great cause. And when I went, Metallica played acoustic one set and then electric another set. I don't know if they're still doing that, half electric, half acoustic, but I've got to be in Jersey next Thursday because we do our annual holiday party, me, Don, and Jim, at a club called Dingbats in Clifton. So I don't think I'm going to be able to get back west the next day, but who knows? But anyway, if you're going, keep an eye out for Sammy and his band doing a set there of, I'm sure, some VH stuff and whatever else they get into. Savatage, who we mentioned a few times in the last few weeks, it's a band that For years, people have been asking, will they ever do anything again? We know they are basically Trans-Siberian Orchestra now and have been for a very long time, but they've not done Savatage in a long, long time. And then a couple weeks ago, it was announced that they were added to a European festival. Then more recently, 2 more European festivals they were added to. And now today comes word that Savatage have also now announced their own headlining shows. The only downside of this here for us in the U.S. is there is still not one show in America. Everything at this point is in Europe. So if you have an interest in seeing Savatage, at least at this point, you're looking at an international trip. Although, I gotta think, being that they're an American band, I gotta think that they might do a show somewhere, even just one show or 2 shows before they head over to Europe. But who knows? I don't know. I'll reach out to these guys and see what's going on and if that's at all in the plans. John Oliva, the band's lead singer, will not be participating in these shows. Zach Stevens remains the singer. John Oliva has health issues and has for a very long time. He still kind of works with the band behind the scenes, but he will not be performing or touring with the band due to a myriad of health issues that unfortunately he's been dealing with for quite a while. The band Shadows Fall released their first new track in 12 years today called In the Gray. That was a band that broke up for a while, came back together. John Donay from that band is in Anthrax. He's been their lead guitarist for a while. Jason Bittner from that band, up until recently, was the drummer in Overkill. He now has a band called Category 7 as well. But they've all come back together to do new music and tour dates for Shadows Fall, the reunited, relaunched band. Alice Cooper Slash and Alice's daughter Calico with a single and a video called Freewheelin' for a children's album. This is to help children's hospitals, I believe, so a good cause there. And lastly, before we go to the phones, and maybe we'll get some calls about this because I'm curious to hear about it. I did see a few emails. Today is a day that AC/DC tickets are going on sale and are likely on sale or maybe have already sold in your area if you had a date near your area. Today was the on sale, and it was at noon in the respective time zones of the shows. Now, being that it is 12:27 here in Vegas, Pacific time, and, of course, this being the earliest time zone, I would think that now all time zones have been put on sale. Some may already be sold out. I don't know. I already got one email from somebody in Tennessee who showed me a screen grab of the seating chart for the show in Dallas. And the way he sent the email, I couldn't read the information on it. It was kind of blurry. But in his note, he wrote that it looked like to him the fees were included in the ticket pricing, which is a good thing. But he also wrote in the email, but I'm taking a pass. These prices are too rich for my blood. Now, that's one person that emailed me today. I didn't do any more investigation beyond that as to what the prices are, about the fees, if they're built in or not. And I'm not sure where this is at in terms of what's sold out, what isn't sold out, etc. I'm sure, and I don't know, I'm going to defer to you guys today because I'm sure we'll have people call in about this. But I'm sure that it's going to be like any other major show when it goes on sale. You're going to have people pissed off about stuff, whether it's the prices, the availability, the bots, the secondary markets, what have you. So we'll get a read on that, I'm sure, as we go to the phones here. But the other piece of this, beyond whatever's happening right now with ticketing, is additional shows. And that's the big part that I'm curious about, because if, in fact, most of these shows are sold out or selling out as we speak, then do we see additional shows added? And again, I do not think you will see additional nights added to the existing shows, because there's just no way they can do that, because everything's routed out. The 10, 12 shows they've announced, there is strategically 3 days off between dates at least, because they need that time for recovery. So there's no way they can add extra shows onto the existing dates. But what I would fully expect, and I'm hearing you will see, is additional cities being added. Because as we talked about when AC/DC first announced all this, there are major cities not being hit in this initial run of dates. Off the top of my head, New York area, which is the biggest, the Bay Area. They're going to Canada, but they're going to Vancouver, not Toronto. So there's some big holes here in terms of big cities. And I do not know why they wouldn't have announced everything at the same time. But that is another piece of this. Are people going to, like, if you're in New York, are you trying to go to the Boston show right now? Or are you waiting because you feel it's inevitable they're going to add New York? I think it's inevitable that they'll add. As I said a couple days ago, I'm hearing from sources that there's already holds on these dates. Maybe they're just waiting until what they put out goes clean. But if that is the case, that's kind of shitty for people who might be buying tickets and doing a road trip, and then in a couple days they're going to find out there's a show in their backyard. Which, in that case, you're either doing the road trip anyway, or you're going to try to sell those tickets and then rebuy for your area. But I just don't... I understand bands needing to do that who have issues or concerns about ticket sales. I just don't think that's going to be the case with AC/DC, but I could be wrong. I mean, again, people do not have endless funds. We just saw a major festival here in Vegas go down a week or so ago that was headlined by Metallica and Linkin Park. Sick New World. And then they put out a statement saying, allegedly between Metallica and Linkin Park, there was $10 million in money tied up alone that had to be paid to those bands to play. And the promoters got cold feet when only a quarter of the tickets were sold at this point, and they had to sell out to just break even with the prices of the bands. There were other issues too. Way too many bands on the bill, one day, there's a lot of stuff there, apparently. But it basically, at the end of the day, it always comes down to economics, and the economics took that thing down. So, we know that huge bands, if you're Taylor Swift, you're going to sell out everywhere. Right now, Oasis, selling out everywhere. Right now, My Chemical Romance, selling out everywhere. Creed, huge hot ticket this summer. But again, people don't have endless funds. And even if it's something they really, really want to go to, and if it's really expensive, they might, you might see a little bit of hesitation. So I'm curious. We'll get I see some people on hold already who are dealing with AC/DC or trying to buy the tickets. So I'm really curious to hear what you guys have to say on that and get some insights, because that's what I love about doing a daily rock talk show, man. I mean, you guys are going to tell it like it really is and giving you that platform to do so. So let's do that. When we come back from the break, we go to the phones. 844-686-5863. Everything's locked up at the moment. As I answer calls, lines will open, so keep trying. And it's officially a free-for-all Friday. So anything from the last couple days, anything from the last week, the AC/DC on sale, anything at all in rock music, you know the drill. We come to you right after this.
This is Free for All Friday.
It's insane.
Crunk Nation.
Best show in the history of radio.
With Eddie Trunk.
I love it too. All right, let's see what we get into. Closing out the week with a Free for All Friday as usual. Back live, of course, with you guys on Monday, 3 o'clock Eastern. For both shows Monday to kick off the week, and Chris Jericho, PJ Farley will start us off as our guests on the show. Probably going to be more 80s Kiss talk, because That's what those guys are into, and that's what they are promoting with their band Quarantine. So we'll get into that and whatever else with those guys on Monday's show. Of course, all the news and all that stuff as well as we come off the weekend. All right, let's get to it. Starting off with Jeff in St. Louis. He's our first caller today. Go ahead, Jeff.
Hey, Eddie. So I was listening to you earlier, a few minutes ago, talk about AC/DC. I went ahead and pulled the trigger on this one. It was a struggle for me because I had just paid quite a bit of money for the Stones over the summer. So it's kind of a pick and choose thing. So I decided AC/DC and then, of course, Michael Schenker next year will be my two big shows that I travel to go see. So
Schenker's going to cost you a whole lot less. Schenker's going to be a club or something, yeah.
Right, no, exactly. But I still, in my market, I live in St. Louis, so it's not a real big market. So I am willing to travel depending on who it is. So in this case, I'm going to Minneapolis to go see AC/DC, and there is a reason why I'm doing that, because I also had the option of buying to go to Nashville. Well, I'm picking Minneapolis for this reason. Just in case this thing implodes right away, I want to see a show, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And that's basically it. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I mean, when you're dealing with a band of this age, obviously that's a concern. Now, the good news is they went through Europe without a problem. But when you're dealing with people that are this age, and obviously Brian having had that hearing issue and all of that, I mean, that's a valid concern.
Well, that was it, and really, to be honest with you, the prices weren't that bad. It was a little over $500, which nowadays I consider that for two tickets not really too bad. So
$500 for two?
For two tickets, yes.
And is that all in?
Yeah, all in is in the fees and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was $524 is what it was.
All in.
All in.
And what kind of location did that get you?
Middle. Normally I like to sit on the floor. This time, I've been to big stadium shows and sat close on the floor, like for Guns N' Roses, for example. But the hearing and the visual, I think you can, if you're sitting in the middle, and I'm in the lower middle of the stadium. So I just feel it'll be a better experience for my money.
So lower bowl of the stadium, about halfway back is where your seat is?
Yeah, like a 115, 113 area, I think is what I got, was 113 actually.
So if it's a football field, you're at around the 50-yard line, lower level?
That's my guess, Eddie. Yes, that would be my guess.
And is the show sold out? The date you bought tickets to, is it sold out now? Do you know?
Man, I don't know. That's a great question. Although I tell you what, every time I kept trying to hit for my tickets, they were already scooped up. So I had to try 3 different times before I finally got some reserved tickets.
It is not sold out yet. I did just jump on and poke around a little bit, but they're going fast and there's limited sections remaining.
Which show are you looking at, Joel?
I actually, coincidentally, I looked at the Minnesota show. I wanted to just jump on real quickly and see what was available because they have those waiting lines. So I figured the one that's been on sale, the longest probably would be able to get in and see if they're sold out or not. And there's still some available, but the amount of sections that you're able to click into and look for tickets is dropping. I would say about 15-20% of the stadium sections are still available.
Okay, so and how long has that been on sale? Couple hours?
Yeah,
they went on sale at noon. So almost 3 hours maybe.
Okay. Interesting. Well, I agree with you, Jeff, and thanks, Jeff, for the call and the report there. I agree with you that, look, I mean, in this day and age, $500 for AC/DC, 2 seats, pretty decent location. That's not, and with all the fees, that's not horrible. I mean, that's actually very, very, again, 500 is 500. And depending upon the person, 500 is, way expensive. And to other people that have money, 500 is like a walk in the park. But, so again, it's all relative to the person. But in the overall scheme of things with pricing these days, that is actually pretty reasonable. We've seen, thousands being charged. So now when they get to the secondary markets, what's going to happen? I don't know. But as far as a general on sale, that's not terrible. Joel, do me a favor, peck around a little bit and see what let me know what you're seeing as far as various other dates.
Right, I started poking around in some of the other dates, but just in terms of pricing, it seems like across the board, because I also got in and looked at the Gillette Stadium ones, the Gillette Stadium show, and it looks like pricing is in that range of like the cheapest being upstairs being around $70 to $80, which really isn't bad. You see a lot more of these big stadium shows really gouge you even at the higher levels, but $70 to $80 for upstairs, and then anywhere from like $200 to $500 depending on the stadium, it looks like, for downstairs on the floor and VIP packages and such.
Right. So is the show in at Foxborough, is that sold out? Does it show, or can you still buy tickets to the New England show?
You can still buy tickets to the New England show. It's pretty much like the Minnesota show as well. There, you can't select from all of the sections to like zoom in and see which section still has tickets available. It's down to about 15% of the arena's sections that you can click into to then get tickets. So they're moving, but they're still available.
Yeah, the reason why I was curious about that particular one is because, again, with no announced New York, New Jersey date yet, most people in that area who are concerned about whether there's going to be one or not, I would think the most road trippable closest is the show in Boston. Car ride you could do in 4 or 5 hours, or it's a quick flight, obviously. So that would be the one that the New York, New Jersey people would target. But I think they're also probably going to wait a little bit and see if a date at MetLife is announced, because just don't see how there wouldn't be. But curious. Okay, interesting. So not a sellout in 5 minutes flat, but very strong sales, 2-3 hours in on most on sales, probably somewhere around 60, 70, 80% sold in most of these buildings, but still availability. So, that's pretty interesting. I would have thought it would have been clean in minutes, like Oasis level, but maybe not. I think there's people probably, again, the money, no matter what it's priced at, and also maybe people waiting for extra shows that are waiting to see if there's more in a little closer to where they are. Let's say hi to Dave. David's joining us from Cincinnati today. Go ahead, David.
Hi, Ed. Happy Friday.
You too, man.
Yeah, I got a throwdown idea and band. The choice for the band passed away. For a throwdown idea, how about Dave Mustaine and Kirk Hammett?
What? Just who's the better guitar player?
Yeah, because Dave blows Kirk away, but Kirk gets the exposure. You know how it is.
Well, I mean, it's a different thing, though, because Dave is the front man and singer of Megadeth. He's built his own thing, where Kirk is a part of Metallica and simply the lead guitar player. So it's a different kind of platform,
Yes, sir.
I don't know. I'll think about it. And who's the better player is, of course, subjective, but
yes,
you got your opinion. Others would have other opinions, I'm sure. But what was your other thing, David?
Okay, the Heavenly Band. And I know one of these guys I'm going to catch a lot of flack off of it. But for drums, Nick Menza.
That came up yesterday.
Yep. For guitar player and singer, Chuck Schuldiner from the band Death.
Mm-hmm. That did not come up yesterday.
Yep. Cliff Burton. For bass, Jeff Hanneman for the other guitar player. And this is where I'm going to get the flack. For the piano keyboard, Beethoven.
You're throwing some classical in with your metal, huh?
Just think what he could come up with his harmonies and his, everything.
I like it, David. David's going, thanks, David. David's going way back. I was saying yesterday, nobody came up with Elvis or Elvis or John Lennon. He's going back to Beethoven. He's got the most metal band imaginable, but he's throwing in Beethoven on keys. It's too good. Here's Dax in Denver joining us. Hey, Dax.
Hey, how you doing, Ed?
I'm good, man.
Couple things. One, I just wanted to get your opinion on something, and then I wanted to ask for a little Christmas present. The first thing is I was working out yesterday, and I put on Psalm 442 from Anthrax, and it just brought me back into thinking. I wanted to kind of get your opinion on that album. I feel like it's really underrated, and I don't understand why it's really not talked about a lot in their catalog. I mean, I really, really love that album, and I just never hear anything about it, so I wanted to get some feedback on that. And then secondly, I need your help on something. You did a special, I think it was it was an interview, and I love your interviews. You did something in 2017, and I was hoping that maybe on one of the off days during the holidays you'd replay it. The interview you did with the guy, he was in a band, and they were supposed to play, and they kicked him out of the band and threw him like on the side of the road. And then the guy showed up in your studio, and you did the interview with him, but it was like one of the worst interviews ever. But it was also one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my life. And I was wondering if you know what I'm talking about, and if you would be willing to replay that for all the other people that didn't get to hear it, because it was pretty amazing.
So, yeah, that was the band. That was the band Santa Cruz.
Yeah,
that was the.
Right.
Do you remember that? That was the band Santa Cruz, I believe.
Yeah, the guy got kicked out like on the day of the show or something. It was very, and the guy didn't want to cooperate with you at all. It was just like it was the craziest thing I've ever heard, especially on this show.
So I remember that. So that was okay. So there's more to that actually, because so it was Santa. Okay, Santa. I'm pretty sure it was this band Santa Cruz, who are still around.
Sure it was too.
They're from like Finland, Denmark, or something like that. They're not American. They were on tour, if I remember, as the opening act for Fozzy at that time. And they were sharing a bus with Jericho, if I recall. And I liked the band. They put out a record that was really good at the time, and I liked the band. And the singer's name was Archie, and still is. And then what happened was, you're correct. He was supposed to call in from the road. And then, yes, he got booted out of his own band, and I think physically left on the side of the road somewhere in California. Like the day before the interview was scheduled to happen. And I got a call from the publicist saying that, like the day of the interview, that he was not going to be able to call in because this whole thing went down and it was on the internet and everything, that there was this whole big falling out and this whole big drama. Thank you, Dax. I'll try to remember this as best I can. And then I ended up hearing that he was in the lobby of the Sirius XM building in New York City. That I guess, if I remember the story right, he had gotten booted out, literally booted out of the bus and the band, left somewhere, but took a plane to New York. And he wanted to come on the air, and he was in the building, in the lobby, wanting to come up physically and sit in the studio for the interview. And I said, yeah, of course, because at that time I wanted to hear about the drama that went on as well. But he could not get up to our building and through security because his real name is not Archie. Whatever his name is that he uses in the band is not his legal name. And, he's European. He had some European sounding real name, and they wouldn't let him through security because he didn't have ID to match his name. So he ended up calling in from the lobby of the building. So I was upstairs on the 36th floor. He's in the lobby now, and he called in, and we put him on the phone. And I don't remember the interview was something like, he was like, I said, well, what happened here? And he's like, because I didn't know the guy at all. And he said something like, I just remember him kept saying, Santa Cruz is not over. His line he kept saying was, Santa Cruz is forever. He kept saying that, right? So that was then. Flash forward a few years ago. That's the same band where I went crazy because they were playing the Whiskey in LA, and he walked away from his lead vocal microphone and the vocal kept coming out. And, my whole tracks thing, right? And the thing I really was crazy about at that time was not just the fact that he was blatantly lip syncing to the thing, but the fact, because he had put a new lineup of the band together at that point. But because he was he seemed completely indifferent about the fact that, he didn't even care that he wasn't near the mic and the vocal was coming out. He wasn't even trying to hide that the vocal was canned. And then he went off at me. I don't even if he remembered that I was the guy willing to have him on the air, and did at that time. But then he went off at me on social media because I called him out on it. What the fuck? I love that. I love when people admit or blatantly do that, and then they're mad at me for talking about it or being angry. It's insane. But he went off at me and he said whatever he said about me. And then a few days later issued a retraction to him going off about me. And said, I'm sorry that I said what I said. I'm sorry that I did what I did. And then, just to bring that up to date, they played a couple times since at the Whiskey, and he made a point of telling the audience that everything was real and they dropped the tracks. And I believe mentioned me by name on the stage in some way and saying, you may have heard this, whatever. It was a big thing at the time. To this day, I've still never met the guy. And I was a fan. I liked the record they made. I was the one that reached out to have him on. At that time, I didn't know what was going on with the live. It's crazy. The whole thing, now that I remember it, is just nuts. But it's odd to me that the real odd thing, because I will never condone or accept tracks, but the odd thing is when bands blatantly do it, embrace it, talk about they're doing it, but then they get mad when they're called on it. Like the whole Falling in Reverse thing. That was a huge thing that I was in the middle of there for a minute. Well, I'm still in the middle of, because apparently that guy played over the summer and called me out on stage. Guy's got a great career. He don't need me. I was still in his head, apparently. I got nothing to do. I made my point. I moved on. I had friends at a show in Houston. He's said some shit about me in the middle of the show. His audience doesn't even know who I am. But if you're okay with doing it, then what do you care if somebody doesn't like that you do? I don't know. But anyway, that was the Santa Cruz story. I still have friends that come up to me. They're good friends of mine. They're like, Santa Cruz is forever. Because in that interview, that's all he kept saying, I remember. That's the one thing I remember about the interview. But I also think it's cool that when these guys stop doing it, and they realize it's not needed, and they realize that there are people that have a problem with it. Anyway, to each their own, man. That's just my position. But yes, that was the band. That was the story. Now that it comes back to me, whether we still have that interview anywhere, I'd have to look in the archives. But I do remember how odd it was. It was one of the more odd ones. Real quick, that Anthrax record that he mentioned, Stomp 442. I mean, all I can tell you, record came out in 95. Anthrax was in a tough spot at that time. The scene was changing, mid-90s. they were walking this line, trying to be a little bit more modern. It was a tough time for metal. Obviously, the grunge thing was in full swing. Everybody was, getting killed as far as, trying to make some stuff happen and try to have any success with anything at that point. They'd been around a while, the Spitz was out of the band, a lot of lineup changes, what have you. But yeah, all those records have good stuff on it. The best song on that album is Fueled. That's a great song. But there's other stuff on that record I like as well. And there's other Anthrax records like around that time, like the record after it with Inside Out. That was a great record too. We've Come For You All is a great record. But, it's the same old story. I mean, 90s came around and a lot of bands struggled. Metal, hard rock, whatever it was. Here's Nicole in Las Vegas. Hi, Nicole.
Hey, Eddie. How you doing today?
I'm good. What's going on?
A question and a request. Question, and I apologize if it's been mentioned before, but now that it's almost a year since the 40th anniversary party, which was awesome, can you disclose how much money's been raised?
I don't recall what the final amount that went to the Dio Cancer Fund is. We made the deposit after all the expenses and stuff. It was somewhere around $50,000 that I think they got. We presented a check to them at the last bowling event, but it was somewhere in the neighborhood of that.
Very nice. And then it's Friday. Let's have some fun representing the girls here. Try and stump me.
Me try to stump you?
Yeah, why not?
All right, well, what's your favorite band?
I'm a girl. Bon Jovi, Motley Crue, Poison.
All right, well, let's start with Bon Jovi. We can do Bon Jovi. Let's see. Let me think of a good one on Bon Jovi. Who was the guitar player on Runaway?
Oh, God. Not Dave Sabo. Not Richie Sambora.
Nope.
Oh, my God, you stumped me. I know Hugh McDonald was the bass player.
Hugh McDonald.
Yeah, he was the bass player on Runaway. Yeah. I know that.
Yeah. Because, Runaway was recorded with a different band.
Yes, that was all, And then Rumor, rest in peace, Alec, that he never played on any of the albums at all, and it was Hugh for a very long time. All right.
The lead guitar player was a guy named Tim Pierce. Do you know who the drummer was?
No. Crap.
Pretty sure it was a guy named. Yeah, I know, because it's on the CD. I'm pretty sure it was Frankie LaRocca, if I remember correctly. He had a band called Frankie and the Knockouts, I believe, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But yeah, a guy named Tim Pierce played the guitar solo. That was a completely different band because the band hadn't even been put together yet because Bon Jovi just made that record for a local homegrown thing. It was a single, so. But yeah, Nicole, thank you for that. Consider you stumped.
I'll buy you a drink when I go to the bootlegger. I always tell them your picture should be on the wall.
They're going to do that. Thank you, Nicole. I appreciate it. They're actually, my picture is going to be on the wall in the bootlegger. They've been asking me for a signed photo for years to put on the wall. I finally gave them one a couple weeks ago. It should be up. Nicole, if you don't know, the Bootlegger's a phenomenal Italian restaurant here in Vegas, and it's tons of rock people hang out there, and my friend owns it, and I'm in there all the time, and they have a little wall of fame there, so I'm honored to have been included in it. It should be up by now. Oh, man. You never know what's coming down the pike on a Free For All Friday. Hey, real quick, she brought up my 40th party, which next Wednesday is a year since that party, which is absolutely insane. And Joel, I'm going to put this on you on the air and see if you can do this for me. And you have a few days to try to work on this. But Eric Luftglass in our talent department from SiriusXM was there. And he recorded a bunch of things with people and artists that were on their way in or during the party. I don't know about me, 40 years, congratulations, whatever it was. I've never heard that stuff. We have never put anything on the air here from that party. No audio at all. Interviews, music, nothing. Now, I don't know the music end of it. I got to look into that because, again, we have everything professionally recorded and mixed and shot, and we will get that out sometime next year in some way. But I'd love to do a little something on the air next Wednesday to remember that a year later. Can you do that? Joel, do you have that audio?
What I have are a handful of short drops of various artists saying congratulations on your 40th anniversary.
That's all they say, basically?
Yeah, pretty much.
So it's not anything worth really hearing?
We can drop them in throughout the show, like as we bump in and out. Next Wednesday is like a year, is an anniversary thing. But there's no interviews or anything like that. No content like that.
I mean, I don't want to drop it in as a drop. I mean, it doesn't, especially because they're talking about 40 years now. It's 41, but I just thought maybe there's something more there because I've never heard it. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll just talk about it. I don't know. I'll see what I can do. But I just noticed that. I mean, I've got this huge poster from that night. I'm looking right at it, too. And it's, again, coming up on a year on Wednesday. Just crazy. Clearly, without question, one of the biggest, most important nights of my life in terms of people honoring me and how overwhelmingly surreal it was and still is. And I just, again, cannot wait for you guys to be able to see the video and hear the audio. It's mind-blowing. I was clicking around YouTube last night, and YouTube kind of figures out the algorithms of what you go to all the time. So for me, it's always rock stuff that comes up. And one of the things that came up was Eddie Trunk's entire 40th party. And it was one camera that somebody had in the balcony that shot, they say, the whole thing. But I didn't watch it, but the running time on it was 2 hours and something. That's not the whole show, because that whole show was 3.5 hours long. But I have the whole show, and I have it total pro shot, edited and recorded, unlike anything not even anything in the same universe that you'll see online. You got to see this. So I can't wait to get it out. That's something I'm excited for next year, and we're still working on, because it's involved. You got to get clearances and releases and all that shit. So we're dealing with that still. Frankie LaRocca was the drummer on Runaway. AJ just confirmed. All right. Let's do a break. We'll come back. Continue with your calls. Try to pick up the pace, get more people in. Just a lot of good stuff. Always love to riff on it. More people calling in, I see. I want to hear more about the AC/DC stuff. A lot of people on hold for that as well. We'll get to you and continue working through a Friday right after this on Trunk Nation.
Going down the beaches on the River City line. When I tell her my secrets, she said I'll keep them with mine.
Free for All Friday with Eddie Trunk.
He owns rock and roll.
Sirius XM.
The beginning of a cultural movement.
Faction Talk.
Believe your ears. The Christmas season has unofficially begun. Holly has returned. A holiday channel with Mariah, Kelly, Sabrina, and more. Turn up the merry and bright holiday hits that get the season lit. Holly Holly, now through Christmas Day on Channel 79, or listen at home on the SiriusXM app.
Attention, small business owners. Do you need funding for your business? At LendSeek.com, we provide revenue-based working capital programs from $20,000 to $1 million. So whether it's funding for inventory, equipment, expansion, payroll, or other needs, seek no more. All it takes is just one simple application to access over 100 funding products that are powered through our breakthrough AI-enabled lending platform to get you the best options in today's marketplace. If you've been in business for at least 1 year with monthly revenue of at least $50,000, you could receive the business funding you need when it matters most, regardless of your personal credit score. Funds in your account in just 24 hours with no collateral, no prepayment penalties, and no restrictions on how you use the funds. There's no obligation and zero out-of-pocket costs. So apply for the business funding you need today at LendSeek.com. That's LendSeek.com.
This holiday season, Kia is supporting St. Jude Children's Research Hospital and their life-saving mission. At St. Jude, families never receive a bill for treatment, travel, housing, or food, so they can focus on helping their child live. Please join Kia in supporting St. Jude this holiday season, and together, we can save even more lives. To learn more, visit stjude.org/Kia.
Price based on the monthly billing for a 10-year term policy for a healthy, non-smoking 44-year-old male. Paid active portrayal.
Dude, guess how much I pay for $1 million term life insurance policy?
Gotta be at least $150 a month.
Wrong, my friend. I got coverage through Ethos. Only $69 a month, and I didn't need a medical exam. Just answered a few easy health questions.
That's impressive, but I'm shocked you have life insurance.
But you don't? Come on, man. You have a wife and kids. What if something happens to you? Trust me, or better yet, check out some of their reviews. Ethos is A+ rated on the BBB and excellent on Trustpilot. Once you sign up, they can start your coverage the same day with policies as low as $1 a day.
Wow, I'm sold. I'm signing up right now.
Ethos, a fast and easy online experience. Policies for every budget and up to $2 million in term coverage with no medical exam. Just a few health questions. Get your free quote at applyethos.com. E for easy, E for ethos. At applyethos.com. That's applyethos.com.
Hi, I'm Joe Perillo with JoePerillo.com. We know many of you are searching for just that right pre-owned luxury vehicle. That's why I want to tell you about JoePerillo.com. At JoePerillo.com, you could browse our huge selection of curated luxury vehicles. JoePerillo.com is based in Chicago, but we ship cars all over the country. Check out JoePerillo.com. That's Joe Perillo, Perillo. Or dial 312-BMW 1111. That's 312-BMW 1111. 312-BMW 1111.
Free for All Friday with Eddie Trunk.
We talk about all these bands that we love that are putting out new records and who's going to be on them and who's going to release them and what have you.
Trunk Nation.
I mean, you guys love this.
Faction Talk.
All right, we're back. Let's dive right back in on the phones. Jacob in Dallas is up next. Go ahead, Jake.
All right, I'm in the Dallas-Arlington area, obviously, and I was looking at the tickets for AC/DC. And I can tell you, Eddie, this is without taxes. You can get in the door from $80 to like $500 is like the prices. So you figure like about $100 to get in the door from nosebleeds. On the floor, you can get $300. It says $250, but with taxes and everything, it's like a $300 ticket for on the floor. It's in the back, but you're on the floor. I'm on a budget, so I'm going to have to wait for Santa Claus. I didn't, pull the plug on these yet, but that's what it's looking like. And it's at AT&T Stadium, Cowboys Stadium, and it's only through the SeatGeek app. You can't do, you can go on Ticketmaster, but it directs you to the SeatGeek app, and that app, I guess, sponsors that stadium because when Metallica came here, you had to go through SeatGeek as well, and everywhere else, every other city, it was through Ticketmaster. So pretty fair price. I mean, I'm not complaining on the prices and anything. Those are great prices. And this might be their last time to see him and everything. And one more thing, Eddie, you think no one's really brought it up, but you think Brian's health or, his voice is maybe why they're waiting to release more dates, or is it just, how how many cities will sell, like they're waiting on type thing, like you were talking about?
I don't know. I don't think it's related to his voice, Jacob, because look, if there's going to be an issue with that, it could happen at any time. And he did get through Europe without a problem. I got to think if they add cities, and the reason why they haven't yet is they just want to see how this stuff sells. I mean, I'm on AC/DC's website right now, and I'm kind of surprised as I'm looking at this. There's not one show that is sold out. So I'm looking from First Date, which is April 10th, and scrolling through to the last announced date, which is May 28th. On the AC/DC official website, every single show has a purchase link. Not one says sold out. Now, the other thing about it going through Ticketmaster, let me see here. So I don't know if this tour is being produced by Live Nation. I can't see who the promoter is. I don't know if they might very well be doing something. I don't see anything where it says Live Nation presents. Because when you're this big of a band, you can go into these venues and basically buy them out. You can basically be your own promoter. It's a challenging thing to do, but you can do it. Most shows, even at this level, partner with a promoter. But the reason why I bring that up is because if he's saying you can't buy tickets on Ticketmaster, if this was being produced by Live Nation, of course, they own Ticketmaster, so that's their ticketing arm. So they may be doing an end around. And of course, bands do that because you make more money as well. So I'm not sure about the ticketing aspect, but it sounds like, yes, it sounds like by today's standards, the pricing is pretty fair on this one, at least so far from what we're hearing from people. Joe in Montana. Go ahead, Joe.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Joe.
Hey. Yeah, I just got tickets in your second hometown of Vegas about a half hour ago. They weren't bad at all.
What'd you pay?
All in for $177. I mean, it's an upper, but I didn't feel bad. Considering.
So when you say upper, are you like way high and
200,
all the way in the
200
back?
200 level. 200 level.
So not all the way in the top.
No.
Okay.
But I will say that, it's pretty sad when we say 177 in bed.
I know. No, trust me, I know.
And especially because I do more metalcore. This is more for my wife, which, trust me, I love AC/DC, but
right.
You go to a metalcore, $25, $5 beers.
Well, yeah.
1,200 people. It's a pile of fun. So.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right, Joe. So you're in pretty good shape there, and yeah, if you're in Montana, clearly you're not gonna. If they add dates, you're not getting a date in Montana. Given where you live, so yeah, you've got to do a road trip no matter what because they're not adding Montana, unfortunately.
And Vegas is easy for us to get to, so we have direct flights.
Yeah. All right, there you go. What airline, by the way, is it direct?
Well, we can do Southwest, Allegiant. And I think I think Alaska, possibly.
All right.
But I know
cool.
Southwest and Allegiant for sure.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. Always curious about that because I'm here so much. Sometimes I got to jump out to places and who's got directs. But the thing is that, you're dealing with football stadium shows, and these football stadiums, as you know, are enormous. So when like Joe's saying he's halfway back, 3/4 back, whatever, that's still pretty friggin' far because these places are so huge. These are not baseball stadiums; they're football stadiums. Huge difference. But yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody. I mean, it's good to hear. It's good to have a day when a major show goes on sale and getting reports, people not freaking out about the cost, because often it's the opposite. So kudos to AC/DC, the ticketing, however they've done this, because it seems like so far from what we're hearing from people, it's pretty fair by today's standards. But it is funny, like he just said, and the previous caller said, oh yeah, my two big splurges are going to be AC/DC and Michael Schenker. Like he just said about going to a metalcore show. I mean, that's not even a comparison. And Michael Schenker, you're probably going to be able to get in for $30. You know? I mean, it's just totally different universe there. Let's say hello to Randy. He's joining us from Pennsylvania today. Hi, Randy.
Hey, Eddie. How you doing?
Good, Randy. What's up?
Hey, two things. On Carrot Top's next segment that you guys are going to do that you don't want to do,
right.
How about we call it Exit Stage Death?
I'm not doing it. There's no way. There's no way I'm doing a show talking about people who are imminently going to die. It's awful. I can't do that.
All the world's a coffin. Okay. So,
like I said to him last night, like I said to him yesterday during the show, we're sitting here goofing, and he kept saying to me, like he was looking at me seriously. He's going, well, he goes, but you know, there are people, I mean, because, you know, there are people that are late 70s, or I mean, we know there's people with these health issues. We know they're going to go soon, like probably in the next year or two. I mean, we should just do it. I'm like, are you insane? And then then I'm going to go walk across the street and get hit by a freaking car. And then what about, I could be on the list. Come on, we're all on the list.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Yeah, you should do one for comedians when he comes in next time.
Exactly.
Hey, so the one thing I wanted to bring up, and I think I listened to everything yesterday. Did anybody bring up John Lord?
Yes.
They did?
More than once. Yes, more than once.
All right. All right. Have a good one, buddy.
All right. Thank you, Randy. Yeah, if you didn't hear yesterday's show, Carrot Top's idea of the next show being artists who are imminently probably going to die in the next year and put a fantasy band together for them. And I just said, absolutely insane and wrong, and I will not do that. I will not touch that one. We're jinxing ourselves even talking about it. After I got out of the studio at the Wynn yesterday, where our Sirius XM studio is, I walked across the street. There's this huge mall just across the street called the Fashion Show Mall. And I haven't been over there in a while. I'm like, you know what? The weather was beautiful yesterday. It was like 70 degrees. So I'm going to take a quick walk over there. And I'm like, I'm crossing Las Vegas Boulevard to go to the mall. And I'm like, yeah, great. Somebody's going to come clip me. And I'm going to be like, yeah, I was on the Waiting in the Wings show. Oh, man. Here's Eddie in New York joining us. What's up, Ed? How are you?
Okay, how's everything going? Couple of things. I agree with you. Ultimate Sin over Bark at the Moon. I think Jake really got into his own then. And I sent you an email on a interesting Eddie Van Halen interview he did in '98 when he thought the band started to fall apart during the Sammy years, if you want to give a listen to. And,
okay.
I want to know, did you see the Alex Van Halen, Anderson Cooper interview?
I did. I talked about it earlier this week after I saw it. I think on Monday or Tuesday's show I brought it up.
Now, just as a human, and you're in the music business as far as a reporter and stuff, how many years do you think it'll go by when Alex doesn't address Sammy at all? Because he did Dave and Mike in that interview. And until you have someone sit down with him and say, dude, why is it such a deep cut? You know?
Well, I think, I think, Eddie, first of all, I mean, I know that, and thanks, Eddie, for the call. I know that it's a no, like, I know of the interviews that he has done, it's kind of a condition that you don't bring it up. Like, I know that for a fact. Which, as I said before, and I know, and I've been told that's why he won't do this show, because he knows of my relationship with Sammy. But as I said, if they just would communicate about it, I would gladly interview Alex and adhere to that condition, but I would just tell you guys that that was a condition, so you don't think I'm dropping the ball. But I would do it because there's so much other stuff to talk to him about. Now, in the case of Anderson Cooper and this interview that he did with him that I talked about earlier this week, I don't know Anderson Cooper at all, so I don't want to overly assume. But in watching the interview, I get the sense that Anderson Cooper is not necessarily a massive Van Halen fan, that he knows the ins and outs of the entire band and the catalog, because he seemed pretty enamored at things that everybody knows. Like, for instance, Alex's dad played on Diver Down. Like, it seemed like it was new news to him. I also mentioned in the interview a couple times he called the band Von Hollen, the way he pronounced it. So, to me, that interview and probably why Anderson Cooper had interest in that interview and doing that on his podcast was because Anderson Cooper's in a situation where he also had a brother pass away. So if you watched it, that was very much the connection there, that they talked about their mutual losses and how they processed it. So I don't think, Anderson Cooper was probably not under instruction to not talk about Sammy Hagar, because I don't think you're going to give a guy of that stature conditions on an interview. But I think they probably pretty much knew that he wasn't going to go deep into music anyway, because I don't think that's how he's wired. It was more about we've both lost brothers and all of that, and some other stuff sprinkled in. So I think that was probably a comfort zone for Alex to be able to do that. But to answer Eddie's question, I don't know. I don't know why it's such. I keep making this point. The thing that blows my mind out more than anything about the Sammy thing is the opposite of how he is with Roth, but has revealed all these things that Roth has done. So I don't know. I don't know these people personally. I can't get inside their head. And just in talking to people and learning what I learn, this is all I know. And I hope that it dissipates. I mean, Sammy has said he wants to make this right. He doesn't want to go to his grave having this issue with Alex. So who knows? Maybe one day they do. I mean, and then it changes and he talks about him. I don't know. Andrew in Philadelphia. Go ahead, Andrew.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, man.
I want to jump in on this Heaven's House band real quick, but you mentioned in that Archie from Santa Cruz interview, you need to do maybe not a best of, but a worst of with Archie and Roland Boland as a dual interview best of.
Oh, that's a throwdown right there.
Yeah.
I forgot about that one too. I forgot. Yeah, that was for people that don't know what that was a few years ago that T-Rex was going in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Did they ever actually get inducted? Are they actually? I don't remember if they actually got in or were just on the ballot.
I think they did get him because I think you were talking to him about what he was going to maybe bring up during the ceremony, and he didn't really have an answer.
Yeah, I think they got inducted in the COVID year where it was a pre-produced show with no audience. I think that's why I don't remember details about it. Joel, check that for me. Is T-Rex?
Yeah, they're in 2020.
By the way, Black Crowes always end their shows with a cover. Last night they played 20th Century Boy by T-Rex. But yeah, I remember that they went in and, of course, Mark Bolan is dead and has been for a long time. He didn't come up in yesterday's show. Mark Bolan's another great one. But we had his son on, Roland, to talk about them going in the Hall of Fame, and he seemed completely disconnected from it. He was talking to me about his love. I remember he brought up like how much he loves hip hop or something, and I was like, "Oh boy, this is not a guy that's well versed in his dad's music." But he was. I think he was like 1 when his father died, so he clearly didn't follow the legacy.
Yeah, that was a great one. I would love to hear those interviews again. But as far as the Heaven's House band, I have Phil Lynott on bass, Can also give some background vocals and writing credits with him. For rhythm guitar, I have Malcolm Young. For drums, I have Nick Menza, formerly of Megadeth.
Nick has been well represented, man. He's come up like 3-4 times in the since yesterday and today.
Yeah, he's great. He was a great addition to that band. Lead guitar, Chuck Schuldiner from Death.
He came up today.
And then lead vocals, Meatloaf.
And now Meat did not come up yesterday. I think I brought him up at one point. So you are not having Phil Lynott sing, and you're putting Meatloaf in the lead vocal position.
Yeah, but I would have Phil do backups for sure.
Right. Another guy called in yesterday. Thank you, Andrew. Another guy called in yesterday and had a band with Phil Lynott just playing bass, which I think is interesting because he's got obviously a great voice as well. But Charlie in San Antonio. Go ahead, Charlie.
Hey, Ed. Thanks for taking my call. I haven't talked to you since I recapped going to your show in Vegas, and I can't believe it's been an entire year, but I've been listening every day. Just FYI.
Thank you, man.
I've got my I have my Heaven's House band, and also got my AC/DC tickets in Vegas if you want to hear about that. But here's my Heaven's House band, and I know 2 of the 5 have already been mentioned. I don't know about the other 3. So I went for vocals, and I went for sort of power pop, rock, if you will. I've got Brad Delp on vocals. I know that was already brought up. Jeff Porcaro on drums. Benjamin Orr on bass. Gary Richrath on guitar for lead, and Miles Goodwin also for lead, so twin leads for guitar. And all 5 have either not been in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or been inducted, or were already passed in the case of Benjamin Orr by the time they got inducted, which is another little side note.
So for those last 3, none of those have come up yet. Ben Orr, Gary Richrath, and who was the other one?
Miles Goodwin from April
Miles
Wine.
Goodwin from April Wine, who died recently. None of those are first timers for all 3 of those to come up between yesterday and today. Tell me about, Charlie, tell me about getting your AC/DC tickets today. How did it go for you?
Really well. It was relatively painless. I actually had a pre-sale code for the Raiders that I used. I was in the queue for about 45 minutes. And when I got on, I managed to get 4 tickets together on the floor back by where the soundboard is. The soundboard is going to be back to your left. And in that huge arena and that huge stadium, that's, I think, probably going to be the best place to be. But I got 4 of those at $300 a piece all in, which I thought was phenomenal. I thought the AC/DC tickets were pretty reasonable, to be honest with you.
The floor, the way they're doing the floor in these stadiums, it's all open, or are there some sections with seats? I didn't look at the grid.
There's a general pit area in the very front, and then everything behind the pit it's a pretty good section. It's just, I'd say it's a field goal or a field end zone size area for general pit, and then you've got reserve seating going all the way back to the back of the stadium.
So if you want to be standing, you go down in the front, that front section, and then everything else is reserved rows of basically folding chairs. So you're actually in seats then if you're back by the soundboard, right?
Absolutely. I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, I'm your age, so I want a seat and I want my space. I also want to be back away and closer to the soundboard in that, that dome stadium.
What is the most expensive ticket? Is it the pit up front, the standing pit up front?
I assume it is. The pit was all sold out, but you could get the floor seats that are closest to the pit. They were all the platinum price ones for about $535. That was before fees, so I'm guessing you come out of that at $700. But I don't know if those platinums are, those platinum seats are so funny because you don't know if they're resale tickets from the venue or from somebody else. But, $500, I wasn't going to pay that. But I've seen worse, obviously. I mean, you've seen a lot higher tickets than that for floor seats in front of the stage.
I bet that pit and I don't know if Joel can find this, especially if it's sold out, but I bet that standing pit up front probably at $1,000 a piece. I bet that's the top ticket.
Yeah, you're probably right.
And I don't think, because AC/DC, whatever they're doing, thank you, Charlie, appreciate it. Whatever they're doing for the VIP packages or the upcharge packages, I didn't look at it, but I can guarantee you it's not any interaction with the band. You're not going to get any meet and greet or anything like that. Those guys are not going to do that. They are not going to interact with fans and do that whole meet and greet deal. I'm sure you're getting preferential access. You're probably getting preferential location. You're probably, and this is a thing that always cracks me up, but it's a thing. Van Halen did it, I think, too. Kiss has done it. You get first access to the merch. So you pay an additional fee for the right to be the first in line to buy a T-shirt for $80. Thank you. Oh, my God. But I've seen it, and with AC/DC, the merch is an enormous part of it. And I can tell you, Metallica did this, Taylor Swift did this, some of these other bands. They will now put out merch tents out front of the stadium. And in the case of the Vegas show, because I've gone to a couple stadium shows there, Guns N' Roses, a few others. I went to Guns N' Roses at Allegiant. I went to Metallica at Allegiant. Mandalay Bay is kind of connected to Allegiant. It's the closest major casino. They will take over, like Metallica took over the gift shop in Mandalay Bay, and they were selling their stuff in there. So you didn't even need to be going into the show or any of that. You could buy outside of the show. That's another big thing, and AC/DC will certainly do that. And that pit area out down front, it sounds like it's a similar grading to what the Stones did, because the Stones did that as well. They got that first pit, and usually the ego ramp that comes out into that pit, and then after a certain point, it turns to all reserved seats. And our caller was saying, he's whatever, my age, wanted to make sure he had a seat. I get that, but here's the deal. If you're going to see AC/DC, 95% of people, whether you have a seat or not, are going to be standing the whole time. A high-energy rock show, people stand the whole time. So whether there's a seat behind you, I guess, it's the option if you want to sit down for a second, rest your legs, rest your feet. But you're standing the whole time anyway. When I went to the Stones at SoFi this year, I was lucky enough to have a pass. I could go anywhere I wanted to. I stood the whole time. I went up to the pit, stood there for a little bit. I did have a seat back by the soundboard, but I never sat in it. So the big shows like that, most of the people are standing, dancing, singing, whatever, the whole time. You're never going to use the seat. And, those pit areas up front, they keep that GA too, because that you can put a lot more people in a section that doesn't have seats. And if that's your top ticket, you're doing the math. You're making the most money there. Joel, did you see what the top ticket was for AC/DC and what it gets you? Were you able to find that?
I can't find it officially because obviously I can't pull up those sections anymore in Ticketmaster, but it sounds like I'm just poking around even on Reddit and what people are saying. It looks like the range of ticket prices for the most part was about $80 to $300. So it seems like for the limited pit tickets, they may have also been in that range of $280 to $300.
Wow, I'd be surprised if standing up front was that cheap, because usually that's pretty expensive. I know that, what band was it people were, I know the Stones were, I think, to stand up there like $1,000 a pop. I think Guns N' Roses was at one point really high in that standing area up there. A lot of people crank that up a lot, but yeah, you're not getting a seat, but I think a lot of people, I would prefer to be there personally, because you're not going to be sitting down anyway. Well, the consensus so far is that, and this is nice to see for a change, nobody ranting and raving. People feeling like they're getting a fair shake with AC/DC so far. Chuck in Alabama. Go ahead, Chuck.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Hey, before I forget, the Carrot Top, the other show, call it God's Waiting Room House Band.
I'm not doing it. You guys can come up with all the names you want. It ain't happening. Because I'm going to do that, I'll drop dead the next day. And there's no way. I'm cursing myself. I don't even want to talk about it anymore.
I've been listening on hold. I kind of been cracking up. Anyway, I got tickets to the Nashville show. I'm driving a truck going down the interstate. So my wife, who's in an office, got them. But she had the same with Ticketmaster. Referred her to the SeatGeek, and it was a little glitchy for her. We were trying to get 4. She was not able to get 4 seats together. Kind of had to get 2 and 2. But and I don't know if it was, she kept like the credit card she was trying to use, like they were trying to call her to verify was it a legit charge. So it got a little glitchy. But the tickets, there were fees. I think they were $235, and then and they were lower bowl, probably 50-yard line, and then once fees and taxes were just a little over $300, which was about the max of what we were interested in paying. So we're pretty happy about it.
So lower bowl at the halfway point on the side, you got a ticket all in at $300.
Yes.
That's more than fair. I mean, that's because that in a stadium or an arena, to me, that's your best spot if you don't want to be on the floor, because you need a little depth. You need to be back a little bit so you can take everything in. Sound is going to be good there, and you're in a permanent seat on the side. It's easy to go up and down to go to the bathroom or get a drink or whatever. Normally, those I think are even more money. So again, that is, again, by today's concert standards, pretty reasonable.
Yeah, and I did click on into Nashville show, just what I was kind of stopped for a minute, and I saw the field. Now, I don't know if they were standing or seats there for Nashville, and they were between $600 and $700 for, like, field level, kind of front towards the stage. Like, again, I don't know if there were seats or if they were standing room only. So that seemed about the high end for the Nashville show.
So do you know what those standing tickets in the front in the pit were going for, Chuck? Did you see that?
I didn't look exactly because, like I said, I was kind of stopped at a truck stop trying to scroll through on my phone real quick just to see kind of vaguely where she got her tickets. And I noticed when I clicked on there that, those were, field level. I couldn't tell if they were standing or if they were some kind of like seated off section.
Right.
But they were between $600 and $700.
Right. All right, Chuck.
And hey, I do have a quick Kevin's house band real quick. So
okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Neil Peart on drums.
Right.
Chris Squire on bass. Keith Emerson on keyboard. And then my kind of outliers are Randy Rhoads on guitar and Ronnie James Dio on vocals. Kind of a proggy, sort of Deep Purple-y, rainbowy kind of thing. So, but anyway, that's what I got. I appreciate you taking my call. Have a good weekend.
You too, Chuck. Thank you. And that's a good band. I like that. Good mix of people in there. I could see that working, actually. It'd be different, but it would work. It was funny, too, because yesterday Carrot Top was, concerned about, he was concerned about being metal enough. And, even though I've told him and people a billion times, and look, I know that a lot early in my career was metal centric and everything, but anybody who's listening to the show knows that yes, we definitely lean hard rock. Most people do that listen, but we cover a wide spectrum of rock music. I'm open to, and so stuff like Keith Emerson and stuff coming up. It's like, was that metal enough for your audience? Just whatever you're into, it's fine. I brought up Michael Hutchence. Come on. Look, it sounds like, going back to AC/DC, top ticket, it's sounding like is around 700. Average ticket, decent location, coming in all in at around 300. More than reasonable. Props to AC/DC so far. Now, I don't know what happens if this goes to, secondary markets, scalping, whatever, but it is a little eye-opening that from what we can see, nothing is totally sold out yet. I would have thought stuff would have been sold out in seconds. So, that also maybe bears out the reason why they haven't announced any additional shows yet, because they were, as big as AC/DC are, as long as it's been since they've toured, again, there's a lot out there. It's a lot of money, even when we're talking about, it's reasonable, $300. You buy 4 tickets, you're dropping well over $1,000. That's a lot of money to a lot of people. So, looks like they've played this right so far across the board. The only downside of it is going to be, if they, in fact, do add some of these other major cities, I can understand some people are going to be pissed if they bought a ticket and plan to do a big travel to get to a date. Let's say hello to Mason. And Mason is joining us in South Dakota today. Hi, Mason.
Hey, Eddie. I was just calling in to talk to you about the AC/DC tickets.
I knew we'd get a lot of calls on this today, which I welcome because I mentioned earlier in the week with these going on sale today, I wanted to cover this and hear what you guys are dealing with. So go ahead, Mason.
Yeah, my wife and I are in our early 30s, and we're huge rock fans, so we try to go to all the big shows as much as possible. We did the Rolling Stone show, or tried to earlier this year, and the pit tickets were crazy. I think it was, $700, $800, even up to $1,000. So when I logged in this morning around noon Central Time, I was able to get tickets about 5 minutes after waiting, pit for $225 a piece. With fees and taxes, it was about $670.
Wait, so which show did you buy?
Minneapolis, the first show of the tour.
So you're in that standing pit up front for 2 tickets for what, under $600?
It was $225 a piece, but before fees, $225 for a ticket. But then after fees and taxes, it was about $670. And that, like you were talking about earlier, that platinum, that first row and the reserve seating, I looked at those two, and those were about $560 a piece. So it was about half the price for the pit compared to an actual seat in general in the reserve seating.
You're saying that the fees and taxes were well over $70 a ticket?
Yeah, I didn't see the actual receipt for how much the fees and taxes were per ticket, but when I checked out, it was $500 or $450 for tickets. And then after I agreed to check out, then they put the fees and taxes on there, so it went to like $600 and some bucks. But yeah, each ticket was $225.
So that means your ticket, but your fees, which, let's be honest, that's part of the price of the ticket because you don't have an option.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Thank you, Mason, are over $75 a ticket. So Mason is saying his face price, the ticket price was $225. Okay, so you say, oh, well, okay, great, $450, I'm out the door, right? But then he checks out and it's $620 or $630, whatever he said. That's $80 or so add-on. For what? For what? This is the part that makes my blood boil with this stuff. It's just such bullshit. And I'm not directing this at AC/DC at all because this is rampant with all ticketing. But it's just bullshit. Because Mason or anybody else, you do not have an option to not pay that. So when you bought the ticket, it should have said the ticket is $320 each, not $240 or whatever he said, $225, because that's what the real price is. Who gives a shit what the breakdown is? Stop with the add-on. If it's not an option to pay it, it's the cost of the ticket. When is that scam racket going to stop? And I know there have been Congress meetings about it or what have you. I mean, let's stop this ridiculous shit. Taxes, fees, that's it. It's the cost. Give me the cost. I don't care what percentage is going to the tax, what percentage is going to the Green Grass Fund, what percentage is going to the band's pocket, what percentage is going to the ticket company, the promoter. Who cares? It's not an option. What's the price? It is bullshit. And I bring it up all the time about resort fees because, again, here in Vegas, they do the same shit on rooms with these bullshit resort fees. You don't have an option. Don't tell me the room is $100, and then when I check out or take the room, it's $190. What's the other $90 for? Oh, the internet, the pool, the this, that. What? That's the price then. This misdirection shit is beyond offensive and has to stop. I don't even know how it's right. But look, at the end of the day, the takeaway here on this Friday is positive, okay? That fees stuff is a rampant issue across the board in ticketing. But just on the nuts and bolts of this today, what we've come away with, we've had a major anticipated tour, anticipated for years, go on sale today. Speculated about, anticipated, talked about, now it's on sale. And, we call it like we see it, and this one's positive. We've not had any calls from anybody with major issues getting the tickets, major issues with bots, anybody with any real concerns over cost. I mean, I told you I started the show. I got an email from somebody saying that they were going to sit it out because it was too expensive for their blood, which I understand because even though these numbers that we're hearing we're all saying are reasonable by today's standards, to somebody that doesn't make a lot of money and has some debt and is getting by day to day, $100 is a lot of money. And I understand that. You're trying to pay your bills. You're trying to keep your lights on. You're not dropping $150, $200 on a concert. So it's all relative. You know what I'm saying? But in the big picture, in comparison to others, it seems like the AC/DC has done the right thing here as best as they could, and everything's been positive. I'm sure we'll get more on this as we go through the weekend. We'll come back on Monday. We'll see what is sold out, what isn't. Who knows? By Monday, we might hear about more shows. We'll continue to follow this, and I appreciate all the insights from everybody who've had their experiences today. All right, sorry if I didn't get to you. Busy week, busy show. Great week, great show. Catch up with anything on the app. Have a great weekend, everyone. Talk to you on Monday.